Nicole was the youngest of three siblings, and somehow, always the most invisible. She had co-founded one of the fastest-growing biotech startups in the country, been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30, and led a groundbreaking project that saved countless lives during a global health crisis. Yet none of that seemed to matter at family gatherings. Her father rarely asked her about her work. Her mother often introduced her simply as the quiet one, and her relatives never missed a chance to praise her older sister Claire, a woman whose beauty, charm, and string of rich boyfriends were celebrated like trophies. It stung. Not because Nicole needed validation from them, but because she had spent her whole life trying to earn it. She had paid off their mortgage without saying a word. When her mother was hospitalized, Nicole dropped everything and quietly covered the medical bills while Claire posted filtered selfies with flowers by the hospital bed. Nicole's gestures went unnoticed, or worse, were expected. No thank yous. No recognition. Just more questions like, why don't you smile more, or when are you going to settle down like Claire? She sat alone one night after a family dinner, in the car she had bought her father years ago, gripping the steering wheel as tears welled up. It wasn't anger. It was a quiet ache, the kind that builds over years of being good, being dependable, being everything they needed, but never what they wanted. That summer, Nicole made a choice that felt bold, even a little rebellious. She decided to bring someone home for the holidays. But not a boyfriend or a friend from college. She brought Dr. Evelyn Moore, her mentor, her guide, the one person who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. Evelyn wasn't just a professor. She had become like family to Nicole, though not in the way her parents or sister would ever understand. When Nicole was crumbling under the pressure of her first year in grad school, starving herself to save money, sleeping 3 hours a night, drowning in imposter syndrome, it was Evelyn who took her aside, made her tea, listened without judgment, and reminded her, gently but firmly, that she was enough. Nicole imagined, perhaps naively, that her family would see Evelyn's kindness, her wisdom, her quiet strength. But the moment they stepped into the house, Nicole sensed a change in the air. Her mother's polite smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her father's eyes flicked over Evelyn's simple attire, her salt and pepper hair pulled into a loose bun, her lack of makeup. And then Claire, always the one with the sharpest tongue, quipped with a laugh, "Oh, I didn't know Nicole was bringing her therapist home this year." Nicole froze. She forced a laugh, a brittle one, the kind you give when you're trying not to break in front of everyone. Evelyn only smiled gently, unfazed, but Nicole saw the flicker in her eyes. The way she sat a little straighter, a little quieter. At dinner, Evelyn was mostly ignored. The conversation swirled around careers, vacations, name-dropping mutual friends and fancy dinners. No one asked Evelyn about her research, her years mentoring young women, or her published work. Nicole kept stealing glances at her, stomach twisting with guilt. She wanted to scream, to shake them, "Don't you see her? Can't you feel how much she's given me?" Later, as the house quieted and everyone settled into their wine-soaked comfort, Nicole found Evelyn outside in the garden. She was sitting beneath the hanging lanterns, cradling a cup of tea in both hands, gazing up at the stars like she belonged to another world. Nicole sat beside her in silence, heart pounding with shame and a strange kind of sorrow. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered, her voice thick. "I thought they'd see you the way I do." Evelyn turned to her with a soft, knowing smile. "Don't apologize," she said, her voice calm, steady. "This isn't about me. It's about what you're willing to see, and what they still choose not to." Nicole looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time in her life, she realized she wasn't just angry at her family. She was beginning to let go of the need for their approval. That night, sleep evaded Nicole like a shadow slipping through her fingers. She lay on the edge of her childhood bed, the same mattress she once curled into as a teenager, now feeling foreign and small. The room around her was frozen in time, the pastel curtains, the framed photos of cheerier days, the bookshelf still holding old yearbooks and forgotten trophies. But none of it brought her comfort. Her heart throbbed with a dull ache, and her mind wouldn't let go of what had unfolded just hours before. Her family's laughter over wine still echoed in her ears, sharp, distant, hollow. Evelyn had sat there, poised but quiet, clearly sensing the undercurrent of judgment behind every glance, every forced smile. Nicole had seen it too. Claire's smug remarks had cut deeper than she'd anticipated. The silence from her father, the absence of support from anyone around that table, it all stung more than she wanted to admit. She had brought Evelyn home hoping for something, acceptance, maybe even admiration, but what she got instead was a reminder of how conditional love could be in this house. Restless, Nicole threw off the blanket and swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her bare feet met the cold hardwood floor, grounding her. Something in her chest urged her to move, to breathe, to do something. The house was silent, cloaked in that heavy stillness unique to late nights and unresolved emotions. She padded softly down the hallway, past old photos of vacations that had long lost their warmth, and descended the stairs, drawn by a faint golden light. In the kitchen, Evelyn stood at the sink, silhouetted by the gentle glow of the under-cabinet lighting. She was holding a glass of water, her cardigan draped loosely over her shoulders, her face calm but tired. When she noticed Nicole, she offered a quiet smile, the kind that didn't need words. "Couldn't sleep either?" Evelyn asked gently. Nicole nodded and stepped closer, her arms crossed tightly against her chest as if to hold herself together. She leaned against the counter beside Evelyn, searching for the right words. "I thought, maybe they'd see what I see in you," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "But they didn't even try." Evelyn's gaze softened. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she reached out, placing her hand lightly over Nicole's. "It's not about them," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What matters is what we've built, between us. You've never needed their approval to know what's real." Nicole's throat tightened. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The quiet between them was full, not empty, filled with years of shared memories, quiet mornings, inside jokes, and unspoken truths. A storm of emotion stirred inside Nicole, frustration, sorrow, but also something more fragile and terrifying, love. Not just affection or loyalty, but real, raw love. And with it came fear. Fear of being judged, of being rejected, of the battle that might come if she dared to speak that truth out loud. But in Evelyn's eyes, there was no fear, only patience. Only understanding. Nicole blinked back tears. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You make me feel like I belong somewhere." Evelyn gave her hand a soft squeeze. "That's because you do." The morning light filtered weakly through the kitchen window, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. The usual warmth of home had thinned, replaced by a fragile silence that clung to the walls. Nicole sat at the edge of the dining table, her back straight but her shoulders tense, as though she were bracing for a storm. Her fingers traced the rim of a chipped coffee mug, the warmth doing little to soothe the chill that had settled inside her. Across the table, Evelyn sat quietly, her posture reserved but not closed off. She was trying to be invisible, trying to respect the space that didn't quite welcome her, but her presence alone had shifted everything. She could feel it in the side glances, the weight of unspoken questions, the effortful smiles that never reached anyone's eyes. Claire entered the kitchen with the kind of brisk energy that could cut through any moment. She wore a crisp blouse, her makeup flawless, her voice overly bright, almost performative. "Good morning," she chirped, opening the fridge as if nothing was amiss. Did everyone sleep well? Nicole looked up slowly, her eyes meeting her sister's with a quiet challenge. As well as one can when walking on eggshells, she replied, her tone dry but controlled. Claire turned, yogurt in hand, the smile still plastered on her face, but her gaze sharpened. Let's not start with the attitude, okay? This weekend is supposed to be about Mom. Can we at least pretend to be normal for a few days? Nicole set her mug down with a small clink, her fingers now curled tightly around each other. Pretend, she echoed, a bitter smile forming on her lips. You mean lie? Act like nothing's different? That Evelyn being here is some kind of inconvenience? Claire sighed dramatically, folding her arms. No one said that. Don't twist my words, Nicole. But you didn't even warn anyone. You just showed up with her, and now everyone's awkward. Evelyn shifted slightly in her seat, her eyes flicking between the sisters. She could feel Nicole's pulse, tense, rising, and instinctively reached for her hand under the table, grounding her with a silent squeeze. Nicole's voice cracked slightly when she responded, but she didn't look away. I'm tired of asking for permission to exist. I brought someone I love. I shouldn't have to explain or apologize for that. Claire's smile finally slipped, her mask faltering for a brief, raw second. This isn't about love, Nicole. It's about respect. You know how Mom and Dad are. You just dropped a bomb. Nicole stood now, her chair scraping against the floor, her breath shallow but her stance unwavering. No. What's disrespectful is expecting me to hide who I am. What's unfair is acting like Evelyn is some stranger who doesn't belong here. From the hallway, a slow, measured voice broke the tension. Girls. Their father stepped into view, dressed neatly, his expression unreadable. Enough. Nicole turned toward him, her jaw clenched. There was something unreadable in his face, something she'd seen before. Not anger. Not disappointment. Fear, maybe. Or the quiet desperation of a man who had always chosen silence over discomfort. Is it really enough? Nicole asked, softer now, but with all the pain of years behind her words. Or are you just afraid of hearing something that doesn't fit your version of this family? The room fell silent again. Her question hung there, like smoke refusing to clear. And this time, not even Claire had a retort. Helen lingered in the hallway, hidden just out of sight, her body pressed lightly against the wall as she listened to the storm of emotions erupting in the kitchen. Her breath caught in her throat as Nicole's voice, sharp with pain and disbelief, sliced through the air. Helen's hands trembled at her sides, hands that had once cradled a newborn in secret, that had signed away her motherhood in silence. She had come here thinking she could remain invisible, a shadow, nothing more than a distant presence at the edge of her daughter's happiest day. But the truth had a way of clawing its way to the surface. With the weight of decades pressing down on her chest, she took a single step forward. Then another. The hallway felt longer than it should have, as if the house itself were holding its breath. When she finally entered the room, the air seemed to shift. Heads turned slowly, first Nicole, then Claire, then David. Their expressions froze as they saw her. Helen didn't speak right away. She simply stood there, her eyes scanning the faces she had memorized long ago, her throat tightening with the ache of years lost. Nicole's eyes met hers, guarded and confused, full of questions and echoes of hurt. Claire looked at her with wary suspicion, and David. David looked like he had aged a decade in a second. I didn't plan to say anything, Helen said quietly, her voice catching. I told myself I'd just be here today as a guest, just watch from afar. That would be enough. Nicole's brow furrowed, but she said nothing. Helen's gaze softened as it rested on her. But watching you just now, standing up for Evelyn, I saw a fire in you that reminded me of the girl I once was. And I realized, silence is a kind of cowardice. Nicole took a step forward, cautiously, as if her instincts were warning her. What are you trying to say? Helen looked down, swallowed hard, then met her daughter's eyes again, this time with nothing but truth. I'm not just a family friend, she said, her voice shaking. I'm your mother. The words struck the room like a thunderclap. For a moment, no one moved. Time itself seemed suspended, caught between past and present. Nicole blinked, stunned. What did you just say? Helen took a shaky breath. I gave birth to you when I was 16. I was young. Alone. Your father and his wife, Claire, raised you as their own. I stayed nearby, always close enough to see you grow up, but never close enough to hold you when you cried, or say goodnight, or tell you how proud I was. Nicole's face went pale. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She turned to David, whose expression confirmed everything. Tears welled in Nicole's eyes, unbidden and burning. You've been there all this time? All those birthdays, recitals, holidays, you were there? Every one, Helen whispered. Because I couldn't not be. Claire turned away, swallowing hard, her arms crossed tightly. David lowered his gaze, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Nicole's voice cracked. Why? Why didn't anyone tell me? Helen's voice was thick with sorrow. Because they thought it was best. And I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd hate me for abandoning you. But I never did. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single moment. Silence settled again, heavy and suffocating. Nicole stood in the center of it all, her world unraveling thread by thread. The woman she had known as a distant presence was suddenly revealed to be the missing part of herself she never knew she longed for. Her breath trembled as she whispered, I don't know what to do with this. Helen stepped forward, but slowly, carefully. You don't have to do anything, not yet. I just wanted you to know. To finally know. And for the first time in her life, Helen stood fully as Nicole's mother, aching, vulnerable, and unbearably human.